Babe, sorry, this week you're Julian's. My boyfriend Lu Qingyan draped an arm over my shoulders like he was showing off a trophy, announcing it to the laughter and whistles of his friends. He had just lost me to his best friend in a ridiculous game. He was certain I loved him to the bone, that I would play along with the joke, maybe even find it funny. I didn't look at him, I looked at Julian, who rose from the shadows. The man who had wanted me for 3 years stepped through the noise, eyes locked on me, voice low and absolutely serious. Sienna, can I take you away? I pulled free of Lu Qingyan's hand, walked toward Julian without a word while Lu Qing stared, stunned. Before we go on, subscribe to this channel and tell us in the comments where you're listening from. Lu Qingyan shouted after me. And then, have fun. Don't embarrass me. I didn't turn around. I was afraid he'd see the hatred in my eyes. 3 years together. Turns out, in his eyes, it was nothing but a game he could trot out for laughs. A wager to brag about. He treated me like property he absolutely owned, convinced I'd never leave. Outside the rooftop bar, the night breeze slapped my face. I shivered. Julian slipped off his coat and draped it gently over my shoulders. The gesture was light, almost cautious. Let's get in the car, he said. I'll drive you home. I shook my head. Looked up at him. Didn't the bet say I'm yours this week? Then take me to your place. I never wanted to go back to the loft I shared with Lu Qingyan, the one littered with his game controllers and team posters, without a single photo of us together. Julian studied me in silence for a few seconds. Then he nodded. All right. Julian's loft was quiet. Like the man himself. Minimalist cool tones, every surface clean. A faint woody scent drifted through the air. It was a different universe from Lu Qingyan's apartment, forever stacked with takeout boxes and dirty laundry. I sat on the couch, uneasy. Julian poured me a glass of warm water. Rest for a bit. I'll get the guest room ready. He didn't ask what had happened. Didn't mention the absurd game. He simply gave me a separate, safe space. My phone buzzed, a text from Lu Qingyan. Babe, home yet? That guy didn't mess with you, did he? Have fun, and snap me some photos. Let me see how well my bro takes care of you. He put takes care in quotation marks, sleazy and smirking. I used to wait for his texts, even an emoji. Now I only felt sick. I blacked out the screen. Julian came out of the guest room. All set, fresh sheets and duvet. Bathrooms over there, new toiletries inside. He'd thought of everything, as if he were merely a considerate landlord sheltering a friend, not the other player in that grotesque bet. Aren't you going to ask why I agreed to leave with you? I couldn't help asking. Julian leaned against the wall, watching me. If I asked, would you give me an honest answer? He paused. Besides, the reason doesn't matter. What matters is that you came. His gaze was deep, still water that could swallow a person. I suddenly remembered, Julian was Lu Qingyan's best friend, yet he and I were barely acquainted. We'd met often at Lu Qing's parties. Lu Qing would be drinking and laughing with the crowd, while Julian always sat alone in some corner, his eyes drifting to me. I used to think I was imagining it. Looking back, the signs were probably there all along. Late at night I lay in the soft guest bed, wide awake. I replayed the 3 years with Lu Qingyan. The birthday I learned to bake a cake for him, only for him to bring buddies home and turn it into a food fight. The night I dragged myself home sick after overtime, while he gamed until dawn and never noticed my pallor. The day I thrilled to tell him I'd been promoted. Without looking up he said, "Oh, so next month you can buy me that new game skin, right?" Each memory, each grievance I'd smothered with excuses. He's just careless, he just hasn't grown up, now crash ed over me like a tide. I finally saw the truth, he simply didn't care. The loser of this game had always been me, for wasting 3 years loving such a man. Morning light woke me to the smell of food. I walked out and found Julian in the kitchen. He wore simple loungewear, the morning light streaming through the windows and gilding him in soft gold. On the table sat a bowl of noodles and several delicate side dishes. I stepped closer, no cilantro in the noodles. My heart gave a small, sharp knock. Lu Qingyan had never, in 3 years, remembered to ask for no cilantro when he ordered takeout. I mentioned it countless times. He always said sure, then forgot the next time. Once I snapped and asked, "Do you ever listen to a word I say?" He answered without looking up from his game, "What's the big deal? Just pick it out. Stop being dramatic." After that, I never mentioned it again. I only picked the cilantro out of every carton, the way I quietly endured all his slights. "How did you know I hate cilantro?" I asked softly. Julian handed me a pair of chopsticks. "At that group dinner a year ago, you picked every cilantro leaf out of the cold beef plate." He said it casually. I froze. That dinner had been more than a year ago. Dozens of people, loud and rowdy, Luchin was busy drinking. I'd sat in a corner, silently sorting my food. I thought no one had noticed. Eat before it gets cold, Julian said. I sat and ate in silence. The noodles were warm, all the way from my stomach to my heart. At the table Julian asked about my work, my hobbies. He wanted to know what pottery pieces I was shaping, said he'd seen the celadone teacup I posted and thought it gorgeous. He asked which artist I loved most, said next time there was a gallery opening we could go together. Lu Qingyan never touched those topics. He talked only about his games and buddies, called my work, playing with mud, boring and penniless. He called gallery openings pretentious, fake and dull. In his universe only he occupied the center. And I was nothing more than a satellite orbiting him. After lunch, Julian said he had to swing by the studio. Make yourself at home, or go out for a walk if you feel like it. The door code is your birthday. I froze again. My birthday. Lucas only remembered it after I reminded him. How did Julian know? I heard him mention it once. He seemed to read the question on my face, offered that single sentence, and left. I stayed in his loft alone. It was spacious, yet not lonely. I walked to the balcony and saw a neat row of succulents. Plump and adorable. I remembered I'd once kept a pot too. It was shattered by a careless friend of Lucas's. Lucas had said, "It's just a crappy little plant. I'll buy you a new one." He never did. Just like every promise he made, he forgot the second he turned away. Suddenly I found it hilarious. 3 years, and I hadn't gotten Lucas to remember what I liked. Yet Julian, this so-called friend, had quietly memorized every tiny detail I'd let slip. What kind of love is that? Or maybe, what kind of deep, silent coveting? My phone buzzed again. Still Lucas. Babe, where are you? Julian didn't lock you up, did he? Haha. I was on a winning streak all night, luckiest I've ever been. Oh, my best friend's birthday is this week, pick him something nice, don't embarrass me. Not a single word of concern. Only bragging and orders. I stared at the line, don't embarrass me. And suddenly I laughed. Lucas, you'll soon find out what it really means to lose face. Day 3, I was on edge the whole time. Julian noticed. After dinner he didn't give me space the way he had the 2 nights before. He sat across from me on the couch and brewed a pot of tea. The tea aroma drifted up. Something on your mind? He asked. I cupped the warm teacup and nodded. I'm wondering if I'm a failure, for falling in love with someone who never loved me back. Julian's dark eyes rested on me. You didn't fail, he said. He didn't deserve your love. His voice was quiet, but there was iron in it. In that instant, the grievances I'd buried for 3 years found a crack to pour through. Tears fell without warning. I didn't want to cry in front of him, I felt a mess. I frantically wiped with my hand. He caught my wrist. Pulling out tissues, he dabbed the tears away, gentle and slow, the way you'd handle something fragile. Sienna, you're wonderful, he said. You deserve to be taken seriously, to be cherished. Not tossed aside like an object, then picked up again on a whim. His words were a key unlocking the heaviest lock inside me. Right. I'm not an object. I have pride, I have dignity. Why let Lucas trample them? I lifted my tear-streaked face and looked at him. Julian, do you like me? I asked outright. He didn't look away. Yes. He admitted it plainly. I've liked you for a long time. From the first day he brought you to meet us. My heart skipped a beat at that. When was that? A summer 3 years ago. Lucas had just won me over and proudly showed me off to his circle. In a noisy karaoke booth he announced, "This is my girlfriend, Sienna, gorgeous, right?" Then he dumped me in a corner and went to roll dice. I sat awkwardly alone. Julian was the one who handed me a juice, wordlessly, with a nod. So from that moment, his eyes had already settled on me. 3 years. As a friend, he'd loved me for 3 years without a sound. While Lucas, the man who'd had me, treated me like a joke. How ironic. I stared into Julian's eyes, pity, adoration, a deep desire held back for years. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked. Because back then, you were his girlfriend, Julian said. I couldn't. A gentleman does some things, and never others. That was his line in the sand. But Lucas himself had shattered that. He'd pushed me straight into Julian's arms. The air was thick with tension and something warmer. I could hear my heart drumming. I made a decision that shocked even me. I set the teacup down, leaned in, and kissed him. His body went rigid with surprise. I didn't retreat, I deepened the kiss. I wanted him to know, I'd heard him, and I was answering. A few seconds later Julian took over. He cradled the back of my head and kissed me back, gentle yet strong, as if pouring 3 years of longing into that single contact. He doesn't deserve you, Sienna, he whispered against my ear, his breath hot. I was drowning in the feeling of being treasured. That night we slept together. From the sofa to the rug to his bed, Julian's every movement carried an almost reverent tenderness. He made me feel I wasn't fulfilling the terms of some wager, I was being truly, wholeheartedly loved. For the first time I thought, 7 days is too short. The next 2 days we lived like a real couple. We went grocery shopping together. He asked seriously what I felt like for dinner. I casually said sweet and sour ribs, and he stood in the aisle looking up the recipe on his phone. Watching his profile then, my heart settled. Lucas never cooked. He'd just say, "Babe, I'm starving," order takeout, and toss me his phone. We curled up on the couch for a movie. He'd stocked my favorite snacks and drinks. The film he picked was an indie art house title I'd mentioned once in a post. Lucas only dragged me to blockbuster action. If I suggested something else he'd shrug, "Those put me to sleep, pick something fun." On the balcony we watered the succulents together. Julian told me each plant's name and habits. He said tending plants is a lot like loving a person. Everything needs patience, needs heart. Not a spur-of-the-moment fancy, remember it when you feel like it, toss it aside when you don't. I looked at him. I knew he was talking about Julian. During this time Julian would send an occasional lukewarm greeting. "Babe, how's the fun? Keep my best friend company for me, don't let him get bored." More often he stressed, "Behave yourself, don't make me lose face." He didn't know. His girlfriend was moaning beneath. His best friend. He didn't know. The face he talked about had been shredded by my own hands the moment I decided to kiss Julian. I even started taking the initiative, begging Julian for more. I wanted to feel the warmth of his body. I wanted to hear him whisper my name over and over when he lost control. I wanted to confirm whatever we had in the most intimate way. To bid the past a thorough goodbye. Julian gave me almost everything I asked for. But every single time he did it with ultimate respect and tenderness. He would ask, "Is this okay?" He would look into my eyes until I nodded. He let me understand. Desire can also be an expression of love. Not like Julian, rough, pure taking. With Julian I was a tool to satisfy his lust. With Julian I was the one being loved. The contrast was too sharp. Sharp enough to make my heart ache. I ached for the 3 years of youth I had wasted. I ached for how humbly I had once loved someone unworthy. On the 6th night I lay in Julian's arms. "Tomorrow is the last day," I said. Julian tightened his embrace. "Yeah. He'll come to pick you up." His voice was a little low. I could feel his reluctance. I rolled over to face him. In the dim bedside light I could clearly see the worry in his eyes. He was afraid I would go back to Julian. After all, 3 years' feelings couldn't be severed just like that. I reached out and touched his face. "Julian," I called his name. "Do you think I'll go back?" The moment my words fell, the phone on the nightstand rang like crazy. Caller ID showed 2 words, "Julian." Like a giant slap of irony. I didn't want to pick up. Julian took the phone from my hand and held it in front of me. "Answer it." A flicker of amusement flashed in his eyes. "Let him listen." I looked at him and suddenly understood. I pressed accept and turned on speaker. "Sienna? What are you doing?" Julian's lazy voice floated out. He was still laughing. "The game ends tomorrow, ready to crawl back to me?" His tone was flippant, as if it were only natural. I said nothing. Julian seemed to enjoy my silence. He leaned down and kissed me. Then he started a new round. Julian's laughter cut off abruptly. "Sienna? What's that sound?" he demanded. "What are you doing?" I bit my lip, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm out running." Julian didn't like that answer. He suddenly thrust harder. I couldn't hold back any longer. On the other end of the line, deathly silence. After a few seconds Julian's roar nearly pierced my eardrums. "Sienna! Julian! What the hell are you two doing?" Julian seemed to think the timing perfect. He leaned down, took the phone from my hand unhurried, and calmly placed it to his ear. His voice, cool and cruel, contrasted sharply with Julian's fury. "She's busy right now. Come find her when the game ends." With that he hung up directly. The room fell quiet again. Only the sound of our interwoven breathing remained. Julian didn't wait until the game ended. He came fast. Less than an hour after the call, the doorbell was being hammered nonstop. The sound was urgent and violent, as if someone meant to tear the door off its hinges. Julian and I were still in bed. When the ringing started, Julian paused for a second. I felt his muscles tense. I thought he would stop. But he didn't. He simply glanced at me, eyes deep. Then he lifted me, still joined, to his feet. I gasped, legs instinctively wrapping around his waist. He carried me like this, step by step, to the door. The bell kept screaming, along with Julian's furious shouts and pounding. Sienna! Open up! Julian, get your ass out here! Julian pressed me against the cold door. I relished his wicked game, because I knew the man outside was Julian. The man who had treated me like property and tossed me away in a wager. Through the door I heard his roar. I felt Julian inside me. A twisted thrill of revenge surged up. Julian. I began, voice breaking because of Julian. We're over. The shouting outside stopped dead. The world seemed to fall silent. I could hear Julian's ragged breathing, and the mingled heartbeat and gasps of Julian and me. Clutching Julian's shoulders, I announced, haltingly but clearly, I don't want you anymore. With those words the last chain of the past inside me snapped. I felt unbelievably light. Julian let himself go as well. He held me, motionless for a long time. His forehead pressed to mine, scorching breath brushing my face. Sienna, he whispered my name. Say it again. I looked into his deep eyes and saw my own arousal reflected there. I smiled. I leaned in, kissed his lips, and told him word by word. Julian, I love you. Julian stood frozen. He couldn't believe his ears. Why? He asked again, voice hoarse. Just because of a game? You're breaking up with me over that? Sienna, it was only a joke. I never thought it would turn out like this. I love you. All his former arrogance was gone. Only wretched pleading and endless remorse remained. I looked at him coldly. A joke? When you used me as a wager you thought it was a joke. When you handed me to your friend like an object you thought it was a joke. When you texted me asking for photos you still thought it was a joke. In your eyes, what actually matters? Your game? Your friends? Or that pathetic, worthless pride of yours? Every word I spoke felt like a knife sliding straight into his heart. He staggered back one step, face bloodless. No, it isn't like that. Sienna, you're the most important thing to me. He babbled his excuses. Julian stepped out from behind me and stood at my side. He drew me gently into his arms and wrapped his robe around me. The gesture was pure possession, pure protection. He looked at Julian, eyes as cold as a winter pond. This isn't a game. It's a wager. Julian spoke quietly, but each word rang clear. Julian, can you swear you had no other motive? Julian's pupils snapped into pinpricks. Julian gave a cold laugh and went on. That night at the rooftop bar, after you lost, you pulled me aside. You said you wanted to make a bet with me. Bet that in 1 week Sienna would come crying, begging to come back to you. You wagered that she could never walk away, that she'd stay no matter what. You said you knew her too well, that she loved you so much she couldn't live without you. You said the win was already yours. Every syllable from Julian slammed into Julian like a fist. And into my heart. So this was the truth. Behind that absurd game lay an even crueler wager. He hadn't been joking. He had used the heart that loved him to test his own power, to feed his sick need for control. He was certain I would lose. Certain that, just like every other time in the past 3 years, no matter what he did, I would forgive and stay. Julian's face drained to paper white in an instant. His lips parted, but no sound came. Because every word Julian said was true. Julian looked at him with nothing but contempt. Julian, you lost. Then, without another glance, he wrapped his arm around me, turned, and shut the door, leaving Julian's despair and collapse on the other side, forever. After the breakup, Julian started pursuing me, harassing me, like a madman. Every day he waited downstairs from the studio, a huge bouquet of champagne roses in his arms. The same roses I'd once mentioned were my favorite. He blocked my way home. No matter how coldly I ignored him, he stubbornly followed. He wrote countless apology letters and slid them under the loft door. In every line he repented, over and over writing I love you. He even tracked down my parents. In front of them he wept, saying he had been young and foolish, begging them to talk me around. These were all things I had begged for when we were together and never received. How I had wished he would pick me up once when I worked late. How I had wished he would give me a single bouquet on my birthday. How I had wished he would hold me sincerely when I was sad, instead of brushing me off with impatience. But he never did any of that. Now that he'd lost me, he finally remembered to hand over these belated, cheap displays of affection. Looking back, it feels nothing but ironic. I never answered once. I blocked his calls. I ignored his texts. When he waited below, I had Julian pick me up. Every time, Julian stepped out of the car and came to my side. He took my bag naturally and laced his fingers through mine. Right in front of Julian, he led me into the car and drove away. Julian's eyes shifted from fury to jealousy and, at last, to numbness and deadness. Watching his haggard face day by day, I felt nothing. Julian took me on trips to new cities. He said he wanted to take me away from this place steeped in bad memories. He planned every date meticulously. He checked every travel guide, reserved every restaurant and boutique hotel in advance. He remembered every casual word I said. I mentioned wanting to see the sea. He took me to the most beautiful coastal town and watched sunrise and sunset with me. I mentioned wanting to learn to dive. He enrolled me in the best diving class and signed himself up to learn beside me. He let me understand that real love isn't consumption or demand. Real love is respect and giving. It's holding you in the heart, showing you with actions how much you matter. On the beach I asked Julian, when did you realize Julian didn't love me? Julian was silent for a long while. Then he said, from the very start. When someone loves you, it shows in their eyes. When he looked at you, there was no light. But when I look at you, he turned his head and gazed deep into my eyes, all I see is you. Half a year later, Julian and I returned to the city we'd left. He bought a new loft here, and we designed and decorated it together. With his help I opened my own pottery studio. Life finally became what I had always longed for, quiet, warm, filled with love. That day, Julian and I went to a gallery opening. It was a solo show by an artist I adore. The exhibition hall was crowded. Julian held my hand, murmuring the story behind each canvas. Then, through the crowd, I spotted a familiar silhouette. Julian. He was much thinner, haggard. The once sparkling face was now etched with loneliness and exhaustion. He stood alone in front of a painting, looking utterly out of place amid the lively crowd. He saw us too. His gaze cut straight through the crowd and landed on us. He saw Julian reach out and tenderly tuck the strand of hair the night breeze had loosened. He saw the adoration flooding Julian's eyes when he looked at me. And he saw the genuine, easy smile on my face, an expression I had never worn when I was his. Julian's eyes dimmed bit by bit. The last spark in them died. He finally understood, he had lost me, completely and forever. He didn't come closer. He only pulled a smile from afar, uglier than a sob. Then he turned and slowly melted into the moving crowd. Soon he vanished from sight. I looked away. I tightened my grip on Julian's hand beside me. Feeling the pressure, he glanced down at me. What is it? I smiled at him. Nothing. I knew, my new life had begun. Thanks for listening to today's story. If you liked it, hit like and share with friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more wonderful stories. See you next time.